Muhammad Ali after the applause, how he changed in his final years. The world knew Muhammad Ali through sound before it ever understood him through silence. His life unfolded beneath cheers that rarely stopped, a constant roar that followed him from arenas to streets, from cameras to conversations. Applause wasn't something he visited, it was something he lived inside. It shaped the rhythm of his days and the expectations of everyone around him. Noise became normal, quiet felt unfamiliar. For decades, his name carried energy on its own. People didn't just say it, they shouted it. Reporters leaned forward before he spoke. Crowds reacted before he moved. Every appearance felt like an event already in progress. The world had learned to associate Ali with motion, certainty, and sound. That noise wasn't accidental. Ali understood performance better than most. He knew how to command attention, how to turn anticipation into momentum. His voice danced the way his feet did, quick and confident. The noise rewarded him, and he rewarded it back. Over time, the applause became expected rather than surprising. It greeted him before effort was required. Even moments of rest were interrupted by recognition. Silence rarely arrived without being filled by someone else's reaction. The world rarely gave him space to be unobserved. But noise, no matter how constant, is never permanent. It doesn't vanish all at once. It thins. It softens. It pauses longer between echoes. At first, the change is subtle enough to ignore. The arenas grew quieter without anyone announcing it. The questions shifted. The tone of rooms changed. People still recognized him, but the urgency faded. Applause lingered, yet it no longer demanded response. Ali noticed the difference before others did, not because it frightened him, but because it altered the air around him. Moments stretched without interruption. Conversations ended without crescendo. Silence began appearing where noise once lived. At first, that silence felt unfamiliar, almost intrusive. It asked for attention without offering distraction. It created space where none had existed. Ali had spent years filling rooms effortlessly. Now rooms waited. The absence of constant sound revealed how much identity had been built around reaction. When applause faded, it left behind questions that could not be answered by speed or wit. The quiet did not accuse. It observed. Noise had once defined arrival. Now arrival felt gentler. People looked instead of shouted. They listened instead of leaned forward. The shift was subtle, but it changed how moments unfolded. Ali realized that silence was not emptiness. It was simply unoccupied, where noise had once crowded thought. Silence allowed it to surface. This was not a loss of attention. It was a change in its quality. The world still respected him, but it no longer demanded performance. That demand had been exhausting without being obvious. Its absence felt strange, like setting down weight you didn't realize you were carrying. Applause had once acted as confirmation. Silence offered no confirmation at all. It did not tell him who to be or how to respond. It waited. That waiting required adjustment. Ali began to feel moments, fully rather than racing through them. Without noise pressing forward, time slowed slightly. The pace of life shifted from reaction to awareness. This shift felt both unsettling and revealing. He noticed how often noise had protected him from reflection. As long as rooms were loud, there was no need to listen inward. Silence removed that barrier gently but firmly. The fading noise allowed memory to surface differently, not as highlights replayed endlessly, but as experiences with texture and weight. Moments no longer demanded celebration. They invited understanding. Ali recognized that this quiet was not punishment. It was transition. Life was not withdrawing, meaning it was changing how meaning was delivered. That realization softened resistance. People around him adjusted as well. Conversations became more careful. Expectations recalibrated. Without the assumption of spectacle, interaction felt more human, less urgent, more present. The silence also revealed dignity, not the kind earned through victory, but the kind sustained through composure. Ali did not need to replace noise with explanation. Allowing quiet to exist became its own statement. He began to see that applause, while affirming, had always been external. Silence shifted focus inward. It asked who he was without reaction shaping the answer. That question lingered. The noise did not disappear completely. It simply stopped leading. Silence took its place, not as absence, but as balance. The world had grown quieter around Muhammad Ali, and in that quiet, a different chapter began to open. When the ring was no longer the center of his days, Muhammad Ali entered a life without countdowns or bells. There were no rounds to prepare for, no opponents to study, no schedule built around combat. Time no longer moved in sharp intervals. It flowed continuously, demanding patience rather than urgency. This change was quiet but profound. For years, structure had given his life clarity. Training dictated mornings, recovery shaped evenings, and fights gave meaning to sacrifice. Without that framework, days opened wide. Freedom arrived, but so did uncertainty. Ali had to decide how to move forward without the familiar architecture of competition. Life beyond the ring did not ask him to prove anything. That absence felt strange. For so long, every action pointed toward a goal visible to millions. Now actions mattered even when no one was watching. Purpose had to be chosen internally rather than assigned externally. He began to notice ordinary moments more clearly. Walking without destination, sitting without expectation, listening without preparing a response. These moments had existed before, but noise had blurred them. Now they stood on their own, simple yet demanding attention. Time behaved differently without the pressure of events. Days felt longer but also lighter. Without anticipation pulling him forward, Ali experienced presence more fully. He was no longer racing toward the next test. He was living inside moments as they arrived. The absence of the ring also removed hierarchy. Outside of boxing, no one waited to see who would win. Conversations did not have outcomes. Interactions were not scored. This lack of competition softened how he engaged with others. Ali realized how much his identity had been shaped by opposition. Fighters, critics, expectations, each had given him something to push against. Without resistance, he had to redefine momentum. Progress became less about overcoming and more about understanding. He found that life beyond the ring required a different kind of discipline. Not the discipline of repetition, but the discipline of restraint, choosing when to speak, choosing when to rest, choosing when to let things remain unresolved. The world still recognized him, but recognition felt different here. People met him without gloves or predictions in mind. They met the man, not the matchup. This shift changed the tone of connection. Ali noticed that conversations slowed. Without performance, dialogue became more honest. People spoke without fear of interruption. He listened without preparing spectacle. These exchanges felt grounding. There were moments when he missed the clarity of competition. In the ring, effort led directly to outcome. Outside it, outcomes were ambiguous. Meaning was not immediate. This ambiguity required patience. He was still learning. Life beyond the ring also introduced vulnerability. Without physical dominance as reference, he faced moments of uncertainty openly. Strength could no longer be demonstrated through action alone. It had to be felt internally. Ali began to appreciate simplicity. Meals without schedules, mornings without urgency, evenings without anticipation. These routines lacked drama but offered stability. Stability felt valuable in ways excitement never had. He noticed how the absence of combat reduced tension. The body relaxed differently. The mind wandered without pressure. This calm allowed thoughts to surface that had long been postponed. The ring had once protected him from certain questions. Outside it, those questions waited patiently. Who are you without victory? What do you value when no one is watching? These questions did not demand answers quickly. Ali realized that this phase of life was not lesser. It was different. It required courage of another kind. Facing stillness demanded more honesty than facing an opponent. He also learned that influence did not disappear outside the ring. It simply changed form. How he treated people, how he carried himself, how he responded to misunderstanding. These moments carried quiet weight. Life beyond the ring taught him humility without humiliation. There was no loss in letting go of dominance. Instead, there was relief. The need to assert faded, replaced by acceptance. He found meaning in being present rather than impressive. Presence created connection without effort. This connection felt more sustainable than applause ever had. Ali began to see that legacy does not pause when careers end. It continues through behavior, through consistency, through example. Outside the ring, he was still teaching, just not through punches. This stage of life asked him to slow down and notice. Notice people, notice himself, notice the value of moments that would never be televised. And in learning to live beyond the ring, Muhammad Ali stepped into a chapter that required no crowd to feel complete. The way Muhammad Ali understood strength began to change once the noise faded and the ring fell silent. Strength was no longer something measured in speed, force, or dominance. It showed itself differently now in how he endured rather than how he overwhelmed. The shift was subtle at first, almost easy to miss, but once noticed, it changed everything. For most of his life, strength had been visible. You could see it in movement, hear it in confidence, feel it in presence. It announced itself without hesitation. In his later years, strength stopped announcing itself. It waited quietly, revealing itself only when needed. Ali learned that holding back required more discipline than striking forward. Restraint demanded awareness in every moment. It meant choosing not to react when reaction was expected. That choice carried weight precisely because it was unseen. The body, once an instrument of dominance, became a teacher of limits. Those limits did not erase strength. They refined it. Strength became the ability to work within reality instead of trying to overpower it. This lesson arrived slowly, reinforced by daily experience. He noticed how composure affected others. Calm changed the atmosphere of rooms more effectively than volume ever had. When he remained steady, tension dissolved around him. This influence felt quieter, but it reached further. Ali understood that patience was a form of strength he had rarely needed before. Youth rewarded urgency. Competition rewarded speed. Time rewarded patience. Learning to wait without frustration marked a new stage of maturity. He saw that silence could protect him, not as withdrawal but as intentional presence. Silence allowed him to choose responses instead of reacting automatically. That control felt deeper than any physical dominance. Strength also appeared in acceptance, accepting change without bitterness, accepting help without shame, accepting uncertainty without fear. These acts required humility, but they did not diminish dignity. Ali realized that endurance mattered more than intensity. Intensity burns brightly but briefly. Endurance sustains. Living with illness, adjustment, and public expectation demanded endurance that few ever witnessed. He noticed how often people equated loudness with confidence. In contrast, his quiet composure suggested certainty rooted internally. This certainty did not fluctuate with opinion. It remained stable regardless of reaction. The change in strength altered how he approached conflict. Conflict no longer demanded resolution through force. Sometimes it required distance. Sometimes it required listening. Sometimes it required letting things remain unresolved. Ali learned that choosing peace was not avoidance. It was clarity. Peace allowed him to preserve energy for what mattered. That discernment became essential as physical energy grew more limited. He recognized that strength could be generous, offering attention, offering patience, offering understanding. These gifts required effort without recognition. Giving quietly became a new measure of capability. The idea of winning also transformed. Winning was no longer about defeating an opponent. It was about maintaining integrity under pressure. It was about responding in alignment with values rather than impulse. Ali found that calm invited honesty from others. People spoke differently around him now. Conversations deepened. The absence of performance created space for sincerity. He noticed that this new strength did not seek validation. It existed comfortably without applause. That independence felt liberating. Strength no longer needed to be proven repeatedly. The shift required letting go of former habits. Old instincts to dominate or entertain surfaced occasionally. Recognizing and releasing them became part of daily practice. Growth demanded awareness. Ali understood that strength could coexist with gentleness. Gentleness did not negate power. It directed it responsibly. This balance felt more complete than force alone. He saw how his example influenced others quietly. People learned from how he handled difficulty without spectacle. This influence felt meaningful precisely because it was unspoken. The transformation also reshaped his relationship with himself. He trusted his judgment without needing external confirmation. This trust reduced anxiety and increased peace. Strength became synonymous with steadiness. Being consistent, being reliable, being present. These qualities replaced earlier measures of success. Ali accepted that this form of strength would not be celebrated widely, It did not fit highlight reels. That acceptance freed him from expectation. He lived aligned rather than admired. In learning that strength could be gentle, Muhammad Ali expanded the definition of greatness. The fighter remained part of him, but no longer defined him. What emerged was a quieter power, one built not to conquer the world, but to live within it with grace. Away from the cameras and crowds, Muhammad Ali became someone many people did not expect. The man known for filling rooms with sound began to move through them quietly. His presence no longer demanded attention. It simply existed, and in that quiet existence something essential was revealed. Those who met him in his later years often arrived with an image already formed. They expected the voice, the confidence, the performance. What they encountered instead was gentleness. Ali listened more than he spoke. He allowed pauses to linger. He no longer rushed to shape moments. Silence followed him naturally now, not the awkward kind that begs to be filled, but the calm kind that settles people. Conversations slowed around him. The energy shifted. It felt as if the room adjusted its pace to match his. Ali's expressions softened. His eyes carried history without needing to explain it. He no longer introduced himself through words or stories. His posture, his patience, his stillness spoke quietly on his behalf. He discovered that listening created deeper connection than speaking ever had. When he listened, people felt seen rather than impressed. That feeling stayed with them long after the moment passed. It was a different kind of impact. The quiet man behind the legend did not compete for attention. He gave it. This reversal surprised many. For years, attention had flowed toward him effortlessly. Now he redirected it outward toward others. Ali noticed how freeing it felt not to perform. Performance had once been instinctive. Letting go of it created space to be present. Presence required no energy beyond awareness. That simplicity felt grounding. He began to appreciate small interactions. A handshake, a nod, a shared silence. These moments lacked drama but carried sincerity. They did not need witnesses to feel meaningful. People around him adjusted their behavior without instruction. Voices lowered, movements slowed, even disagreements softened. His calm influenced the environment more effectively than authority ever had. Ali's humility was not rehearsed. It emerged naturally as ego loosened its grip. He did not shrink himself. He simply stopped enlarging himself. That distinction mattered. The quiet revealed compassion. He noticed others more closely. Their struggles, their hesitations, their emotions. He responded with patience, rather than advice. Sometimes presence alone was enough. He no longer felt compelled to correct misunderstandings about himself. Allowing others to hold their perceptions felt easier than defending identity. This release brought peace. Ali learned that dignity does not require assertion. It is sustained through consistency. Showing up calmly, responding thoughtfully, and remaining steady regardless of circumstance became his rhythm. The absence of performance made him more approachable. People spoke to him as a man rather than a symbol. These conversations felt honest. They did not orbit fame. He realized that gentleness did not weaken memory. It deepened it. Those who met him remembered how he made them feel, not what he said. That impression lasted. The quiet man behind the legend was comfortable with not being the center. He allowed moments to belong to others. This generosity of space reflected confidence without display. Ali understood that strength could be expressed through care, care in listening, care in timing, care in restraint. These expressions required awareness rather than force. He also learned that peace grows when comparison fades. Without needing to measure himself against others, he rested in acceptance. That acceptance stabilized his days. The quiet brought clarity. He no longer felt torn between who he was and who he was expected to be. Those roles merged naturally as expectations fell away. Ali's faith and reflection deepened in silence. Without noise competing for attention, inner alignment strengthened. Decisions felt clearer. Regret loosened its hold. He recognized that this quieter version of himself had always existed beneath the surface. The world simply had not slowed down enough to see it. Now it was visible. The legend did not disappear in these years. It softened, and in softening, it revealed the man behind it, one who did not need applause to feel whole. The quiet man behind the legend showed that greatness does not vanish when volume fades. It becomes more precise, more human, more enduring, and in that quiet, Muhammad Ali was finally free to be fully himself.